Welcome, everyone. Scott and I would like to bring you together for another Compliance Corner, WBA Compliance Corner, this time for February of 2025. And as our usual practice, we have a number of different items we want to touch base on and provide you a resource for each of the topics so that you can go back and review it more closely or forward it on to a fellow team member that you think would benefit from the information. So similar to our last videos, we have an agenda slide for you where we have put forth on a highlight level all the different topics that we're hoping to cover here briefly in the next few minutes. And first up, we're going to cover the Fed's latest consumer compliance outlook. These are very helpful resources where there's great summaries of information, highlights from the Fed in recent examinations. This is the fourth issue in the 2024 year. We'll talk about that. Also, we'll talk about some releases by FinCEN and OFAC on a number of BSA-related items stemming from SAR data, beneficial ownership information, and some new resources that OFAC has made available on its website. We also recently came across a priorities listing from the newly nominated and appointed confirmed SBA Administrator, which is always helpful to know what the agency is going to be looking at doing. And then lastly, a court case that has recently been decided here in Wisconsin that we want to make sure is on your radar. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it on over to Scott to walk us through that Consumer Compliance Outlook resource.
All right, let's get started with our Consumer Compliance Outlook. And as Heather said, these can be quite helpful resources. So we always like to bring it to your attention when the Fed has these publications available. And as Heather had mentioned, this most recent issue is the 4th of 2024 and is available in the link in the description of this video below. So take a look at that. You'll find the issue there, along with a link on that same page to all of the issues from 2024. So if you wanted to go back and find anything that had been published previously, that will be available as well. But in this most recent issue, what you'll find is listed on the slide here. But to just give you an idea, there are links to all of these different topics. And we're not going to go into depth on all of them, but more just wanted to give you an idea of what's covered so you can maybe make a mental note or take a look and save it for something to take a peek at after this video or maybe later. So the issue covers top fair lending matters, as well as in a broader sense, it has top-sided compliance matters under ECOA, Truth in Lending Act, and TRID. There's also an article about complex bank and fintech partnerships. So an interesting read there. It does have a broader conversation, kind of just conceptually what the Fed is looking at, as well as their recent RFI that is exploring those relationships and kind of the use of these new technologies. There's also an interagency statement on elder financial exploitation. This is actually quite a comprehensive resource and a good read. It's got links in it as well, including some tips and strategies that banks can potentially incorporate. So make sure to take a look at that. And lastly, it also has a regulatory calendar and a 2025 calendar of upcoming events. So take a look at that in the link below. Again, you can either look at this on a per item basis. So each of these items that we have in the slide for you, you can either just pull them up separately or you can download the whole issue if you want to have everything together. So with that, I will turn it back over to Heather for our next topic.
All right. So for those of you who wear a BSA hat or are wanting to keep track of what is going on in the Bank Secrecy Act related area of our regulations, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of several FinCEN and OFAC related items that have been released here this month. And first up is that their interactive SAR statistic database has been updated through the end of last year, so the calendar year 2024. And if you haven't used that resource before, it's actually very, very helpful because it is a database where you are able to enter in a number of different components. We have those here for you on the slide. You can make all of these inquiries specific to Wisconsin and even certain areas of Wisconsin. So if you're wanting to see what type of SAR activity has been filed for communities that you are engaged in or that are surrounding your branches, you can actually do that by looking through certain counties, certain regions for all the different activity that has been reported from a SAR standpoint. So very helpful information, and it's been updated. The link will take you directly to that interactive SAR information for you for your searching. It's really great to work with your security officer to see what trends are happening in your area. Our next bulleted item is BOI, or Beneficial Ownership Information Reporting by Companies. And Scott and I were chuckling to each other when we were putting this video together that it wouldn't be a video without this topic being included. It seems like it is something that we've talked about in several months now. And here the update is that we're back in effect. So again, we're sharing this information not because the bank has an additional duty underneath this rule at all. It's just more for awareness. Because there's been so many ons and offs with this rule, some business customers might be a little bit confused. So we're just sharing it for information purposes that once again, this reporting requirement is back in effect. There is currently a delayed effective date through March 21st of this year. And also note that FinCEN is looking at other options to see if they're going to further modify deadlines. So they have continued to update their BOI landing page of FinCEN's website. So you would probably be best to refer your customer to those pages. But we do have the link for you to that page where it has this announcement about the rule being back in effect for companies who are reporting directly to FinCEN. And then lastly, for this topic, we wanted to make sure that you were aware that there is a new tool on OFAC's website. It's a file finder application tool, and it is intended to help users of their website find resources that are on their website. So whether it be guidance or past rule information, the file finder helps with getting that information more quickly than in the past. And there is a link to that tool as well. So back to you, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Heather. So on this next slide, we just wanted to give you an update on SBA's priority list. And so as Heather had mentioned, SBA does have a new administrator, Kelly Loeffler, and it has issued a day one memo which outlines the priorities, SBA's top priorities for the agency. And what you'll see in the link is that there's about a 15-point list in there of those priorities. So quite extensive for what SBA is going to be looking at and focusing on. You can find all of those priorities again within that link, but we have also pulled some of them out for you to give you an idea on the slide here. Not going to read all of them off to you, not going to read the full 15-point list or even what's on the slide, but more wanted to keep you up to date as the agencies develop their priorities according to new appointments from the new administration, as we had talked about last month in last month's Compliance Corner as well. Just continuing to update you as we go along, and there's new developments here. We know that agency activity is on all your minds, and many of you do work with SBA as well. So again, wanted to keep you up to date, give you an idea of where SBA's priorities are going to be and where their focus is going to be. And if you would like to know more specifics or see that full list, certainly take a look. That link is down below for you. All right, that's all I have for SBA. So I will pass it back to you for the court update, Heather.
Thanks, Scott. So also in this informal video, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of a recent court decision here by the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And we do have a link for you to the PDF of that court decision that you can read upon further But at issue here, we've outlined on the slide for you, is whether or not the National Bank Act, or NBA, whether or not that area of law preempts a Wisconsin law, here being the Wisconsin Consumer Act Notice of Right to Cure default requirements for a bank that is a nationally chartered bank. So as you can anticipate, we have many financial institutions here in Wisconsin that are nationally chartered. And so that institution typically looks to the National Bank Act for its terms and conditions and the rules that need apply to its deposit and loan contracts. And oftentimes, a nationally chartered bank is looking to that federal law versus state law when putting together those components of that contract. And underneath that National Bank Act rule, we have a general rule where that federal law will preempt a state law if the state law has two different conditions, that being that it discriminates against the national bank as compared to a state bank, or whether or not the law prevents or significantly interferes with the exercise by that national bank of its powers in connection with its contract. And there are several different court cases that further illustrate the legal standard for what that preemption is and what those words mean. Here the court had looked at those different standards and interestingly went down the path of some persuasive information from Maryland to come to its court conclusion that the National Bank Act does not preempt the Wisconsin Consumer Act Notice of Right to Cure default requirement. So what does that mean? So what that means is that in a Consumer Act governed loan transaction, if the loan transaction were to be in default, that nationally chartered bank needs to follow the Wisconsin law to provide the notice in accordance with Chapter 425, rather than not having to comply with that state rule and instead relying upon the National Bank Act parameters. So it's a little bit of it is a new decision. This is something that hasn't been decided by the Wisconsin courts before. We do think that many nationally chartered banks were providing the notice out of an abundance of caution, but in the event that you aren't, it is something that you're going to want to take a look at because it will change your practice with respect to loans that are subject to the Consumer Act at this point. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. We'll have a further, much more detailed article in the March WBA Compliance Journal, but we wanted to at least get the concepts out to the membership in this informal version here today, since it was something that was released earlier this month. And again, the link to the PDF of the court case is available as part of this video. Scott?
All right, and with that, we are going to look to wrap up, but as always, do want to remind you of resources and opportunities that are available to you. So, of course, as always, we have the compliance hotline, so make sure to give us a call or shoot us an email if you have any questions on what's going on at the bank, any issues that you're working on, any questions or research that you're looking into. But also from a training perspective as well, if you're looking for training, maybe for new staff or on any of those various topics or issues that you're encountering, we do offer training as well that we will tailor specifically to your needs and what you're looking for. So if that's something that's on your mind, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to explain more about that program to you. And of course, while you're on the website, there's a whole host of different resources available to you in terms of different compliance tools, manuals, publications. Of course, this video, back series of this video are available on the website, along with the compliance journal, and the best practice library is where you're going to want to go to take a look at the largest variety of what we have available. So if you need help accessing the best practice library, just reach out to us, again, by phone or by email, and we would be happy to get you set up with that. So you can take a look at those resources, which includes those made by your peers through the various WBA sections and committees, as well as those that are made by your very own team legal here on the compliance section of that. And speaking of sections and committees, as we're coming up on a new section and committee year, if you are interested in being involved as a volunteer on any of those, make sure to take a look at the join a WBA committee and section page, where you'll find a whole list of them so you can see all of them, as well as an application form that you can send in, and we'll help get you in touch with a liaison for the committee of your choice. And then lastly, keep advocacy in mind as well. We're going to have Capitol Day coming up, so you'll see some more news on that if you're interested in joining. But if you're interested in anything advocacy, take a click on this link, see what opportunities are available. There's a whole host of them. It's a great way to get involved and share thoughts within the industry in a way that does truly matter. So take a peek at that, and if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to our GR team as well. Thanks for joining us this month. We will see you next time.